Let's welcome to the Nakhal Mearot, also known as Wadi el Mughara. The Nakhal Mearot Nature Reserve extends for more than 2 kilometers on both sides of Wadi Mearot on Mount Carmel. The Wadi begins near the Druze village of Dalyat al-Carmel and makes its way west to the Mediterranean Sea, south of Kibbutz Nevi'im. Well-developed Mediterranean woodlands are preserved on the slopes of the Wadi, which is habitat for many animals. Named by UNESCO as a World Heritage Site, this extraordinary place will leave you and your loved ones in complete awe and wonder for its rich history, geology, and wonderful nature experience. Located in the Carmel Mountains, just about 15 minutes drive south of Haifa, this site offers a great, memorable, and exciting outdoor activity for the whole family. While exploring prehistoric caves that have been here since basically the dawn of man about 500,000 years ago. These three caves allow for a rare glimpse at how people lived, ate, and hunted back in the day. 5 prehistoric cultures lived in this cave. Also known as the Wadi el Mughara Caves, the Nakhal Mearot Nature Reserve consists of 4 caverns believed to have been inhabited by humans for over 1 million years. The 4 caves on the nature reserve are known as Mearot HaTanur or the Oven Cave, Mearot HaGamal or the Camel Cave, Mearot HaNakhal or the Stream Cave, and Mearot Hagdi or the Young Goat Cave. A highlight at the nature reserve, Mearot HaGamal, was recognized as a UNESCO World Heritage Site in 2012. 100 million years ago, our beautiful Carmel mountain range was only flatland covered by a shallow sea. Over time, the waters receded and the ground rose up to form the Carmel Mountains. Sea creatures died and turned into fossils, sinking to the bottom of the ocean. Eventually, these fossils cover the landscape's natural limestone rock. A steep hill leads to Tanur Cave. This is the Tanur Cave. And from the top, there is a superb observation point overlooking the whole area. Most exciting is a natural phenomenon you can view called Finger Cliff or Matsok Etzba. Long ago, the cliff and the cave were joined, and together they formed a gigantic underwater reef. Tanur, or also called the Oven Cave, is the oldest and westernmost of the prehistoric caves. It was the first to be discovered. It happened in 1928 when the British were building a port in Haifa. They worked in need of large rocks for a breakwater took them from the Carmel. When they stumbled on prehistoric tools, experts were called, and Dorothy Garrod, the leading archaeologist at that time, arrived soon afterwards. The cave's name comes from the chimney in its ceiling formed by natural forces. Life in this cave dates all the way back to the Acheulean culture on the Carmel, about 1 million years ago. The people living here apparently stood erect, called Homo erectus, and chiseled out hand tools which were comfortable to hold and symmetrical. More tools appeared later on and are beautifully illustrated at the cave. For instance, the Mousterian culture, found only in this part of the world, used their hand tools for scraping pelts. About 25 to 50 people lived in this cave and hunted animals who roamed there at that time: deer, gazelles, and wild cows. This is where Dorothy Garrod discovered the Neanderthal skeleton, whose skull contained a brain the same size as that of modern man. However, the face lacked a chin and had a very low forehead. The rocky cliffs of Mount Carmel reveals a series of caves whose prehistoric inhabitants can be traced back about 500,000 years. Perhaps the most unique feature of these caves is that Neanderthals lived side by side with a population of modern-looking human beings some 100,000 years ago. At the Camel Cave or Gamal Cave, you can view a display of the Mousterian culture, which began about 100,000 years ago and lasted for 40,000 years. Mannequins dressed in period costumes illustrate life at the time. A dead fallow deer lying on its side shows you what kind of food they ate. Hides are hung up to dry, and Mr. Caveman is sharpening a tool. He could be making a spearhead or a knife for hunting. Mrs. Caveman raised the kids and gathered grapes and berries for meals. The couple's son is holding a snake. Typical rock plants grow out of the stone wall here, such as Dianthus pendulus, common pennywort or the Umbilicus intermedius, golden drop, Podonosma orientalis, scientific name, and the rare Brassica critica. These rock plants have adapted to life in small pockets of soil and fissures in the cliff. The bell-shaped Jamal Cave or the Gamal Cave, like most of the caves in the Carmel, was created by rainwater seeping into the ground and dissolving the limestone until large spaces sometimes form that are exposed as caves. These are known as karstic caves, named after the region in Yugoslavia where they are very common. The Jamal Cave contains a display that illustrates the daily life of prehistoric humans of the Mousterian culture. Excavations were yielded mainly Archaeolo-Yabrudian flint tools similar to those found in the Tabun or the Tanur Cave. The trail continues to the El Wadi Cave or the Nakhal Cave, the longest of the Carmel caves. It is 90 meters. This cave contains a spacious entry hall at the end of which is a long narrow corridor. A broad rock terrace fronts the cave. Settlement in this cave began in the period of the Mousterian culture, but the main finds belong to the Augrinatian culture, named after the site in France where it was first discovered, which came into existence about 40,000 years ago and continued for some 20,000 years. No human bones were found from this period in the Carmel. However, the stone tools that were found are more sophisticated than before, and for the first time, bone tools were found. Another technological innovation was the use of a chisel made of horn to make tools. After the period of the Agri-Nautian culture continuity of settlement in the caves was interrupted for some 8,000 years. Signs of human activity appeared again in the period of the Natufian culture, which began 15,000 years ago and continued for some 4,000 years. The center of life in the cave at that time moved from the entrance hall to the rock terrace outside the cave where the Natufian village was established. This culture saw extensive changes in the way these prehistoric humans lived. The beginning of extensive hunting and gathering, which eventually led to the domestication of plants and animals. Sedentary settlements were built for the first time during this period, and scholars discern foundations of stones, structures. Artistic objects also appear now for the first time in this country, including the carved stone head of a male figure, an animal head carved from bone, and shell necklace. This culture also produced real cemeteries. Near the entrance to the cave are remains of a retaining wall from this period and niches carved in stones whose purpose is unclear. The proximity of the niches to the nearby Natufian cemetery suggests that they were associated with ritual practices. An audiovisual presentation in the El Wadi cave showcases the daily life of prehistoric humans based on scholars' conclusions and findings in this area. Much of the cave ceiling is black. That's because the cave's inhabitants lived around a campfire and the flames had nowhere to escape. Caves were excellent shelters, warm in winter, providing shelter from wind and rain, and cool in summer. This one is also had a plenty of room for a whole tribe.
בדרכנו פנימה נעצור לרגע ונחוש את המערה. הקור החודר אלינו מן הקירות, האפלולית השוררת בה. מפעם לפעם צונחת טיפה קרירה על ראשנו. נתבונן אל הקירות, בהם אפשר להבחין בקווי הזרימה של המים. איך בעצם נוצרה המערה? אם נרים מבטנו אל התקרה, נראה לפנינו מחרוזת של מערות פעמון שחברו זו לזו בתהליך המסע. זהו תהליך ארוך שבמהלכו ממיסים המים בצלעי הגיר וסדקים ראשונים מתרחבים עד להיווצרות מערת פעמון. נמשיך לצעוד פנימה. אל המערה הזו ואל מערות נוספות בכרמל נכנסו שבטים קדמונים לאורך התקופה הפרה-היסטורית. בני השבט חיו כציידים, לקטו מזון בקבוצות קטנות ונולדו מאזור לאזור. הכרמל שאותם ימים היה סביבה עשירה בצמחייה ובבעלי חיים, ממנה הפיק האדם את כל צרכיו. במערה מצאו בני השבט מסתור, ובו התכנסו סביב האש והביאו ביניהם חוויות וידע. היכולת להשתמש באש ולהתקין כלים שונים העניקה לאדם יתרון על פני שאר בעלי החיים. אדם זה שחי כאן בעבר הרחוק היה דומה לנו במבנה פניו וגופו. לעומת זאת, העולם שבתוכו הוא חי ואורח חייו היו שונים לחלוטין. איך חיו פה האנשים המקומיים? כיצד שרדו את החיים בטבע? איך עברו עליהם הימים והלילות שעשו במערה?
Outside Nakhal cave, you will find remains from the Natufians, the last prehistoric culture. During this time, about 12,000 to 10,000 BCE, lifestyles all over the world became more developed, and here too, humans began to settle down. They stopped hunting and began growing produce on terraced hills near the entrances to their caves. They tamed dogs, goats, and other wild animals and developed interesting forms of art. With permanent settlement came burial in cemeteries, and 84 skeletons were found next to the entrance to the main cave. All were laid to rest in the fetal position, perhaps so that they would take up less space. It's hard work to dig in the hills hard rocks with primitive tools. Another explanation suggests that the fetal position may have indicated the beginning of a belief in reincarnation. Perhaps prehistoric man felt that if the bodies were buried in the position they held before birth, they would be reborn. Shell necklaces found in each and every body's skull are almost certainly evidence that the deceased were given religious burial ceremony. Thank you so much for watching this video. Hope you like it. Please don't forget to subscribe to my channel, and see you again on my next video. Goodbye. Have a nice day.